But also, we didn't talk about sounds. A little bit about the sound system at places like the Loft in New York. They were supposedly vaunted for their perfection in terms of their for audiophiles. They were built to exacting standards. But your position is that they were just loud. They were just good at being loud.
It was volume. It was volume.
It wasn't about clarity. As much.
No, you know the 12 the sound system downstairs at the 1270. This is where Lou Feldman played a key role.
Yeah.
It was one speaker.
Yeah.
An amplifier and a mixer.
Yeah. How good could it sound?
How good can it sound? There's no equalizer. There was a bass and volume control on your mixer. That's how.
Yeah.
There was no separation. Everything was muddled together. It was just the volume.
Yeah.
It wasn't until Lou Feldman put the sound system in 1270, and he also did the sound system in Chaps, where he separated sound.
Yeah.
Lou designed sound systems where each speaker had its own amp. So it wasn't all muddled together. And at Chaps, he had what he called a crossover. It was located under the third turntable. It was 3 knobs. One was mid-range, it was in the middle. One was bass, one was treble. Set the mid-range, and it was the volume control to the amplifiers after the mixer. I don't know, and I never asked him, I should have, because I would like to know today, is if this was pre or after the equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
But what, you used to keep the mid-range all the way turned up and the volume on the bass and the treble halfway.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to take the bass volume and go boom, boom, all I had to do was take that line, the bass volume, boom, boom. Mm-hmm. If there was a cymbal crash in a song that I wanted to amplify, I just take that on the treble.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and I was thinking of that last night. I wonder if those were if he had those after the equalizer.
Yeah.
Because it was located right on the third turntable.
Yeah.
So we had everything wired through the equalizer, which was up with the amps.
Right.
Back to that crossover, then back to the amps. I don't know how we did it.
And audiophiles will always say that was things sound so much better when it was analog versus digital and things like that. And I don't want to get into the whole analog digital, mostly because we don't have time right now. But at the same time, I also, people like Bobby Bushnack would say, but there were DJs playing acetates that sounded like crap because it was what they had. Mm-hmm. So people can sort of romanticize the past as far as the audio quality went, but they forget, I think, sometimes that things were played off of sometimes tapes, reel-to-reels, or off of acetates that didn't sound great at all.
But that's what you had. That's all we had to work with.
But the crowd wasn't as discerning.
They didn't know any different.
But they would notice a real drop in sound quality, wouldn't they? Would that affect?
Not with the volume.
Not with the volume.
You'd make
the
it up with the volume. Compensate. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
But today, I don't want to hear. One of the good things about the sound technicians was the fact that they separated.
Right.
The sound. So everything wasn't all just crammed into one thing.
So let's talk about Los Papagayos for just a moment. What was Los Papagayos? What is
Los Papagayos? Well, I believe they're still in existence.
Yeah.
It was a social organization. The charter was that 50 professional gay men made up to have functions outside of and get-togethers outside of the bars and clubs. House parties, things of that nature, dinners, things of that nature. And what they started doing is, on an annual basis an import party weekend, where each of the 50 members were to invite 1 or 2 of their out-of-town friends into the city for the weekend, and we would have a weekend, all events planned for the weekend, brunches, lunches, dinners, And on the Saturday night was a big dance party. The first one was in 1975. It was the Red, White, and Blue Party. It was held in some loft down in the waterfront. I did the music for that one. And the steering committee for the party, I was in charge of light and sound. And a friend of mine, Kenny, and they had decided that they want to import Rollerina from New York, who's a famous person that dresses up in this grandma outfit and roller skates around the streets of New York. We, as some of us, didn't agree with it, and we didn't think we should be spending the money on that, paying for the airfare and a hotel, blah, blah, blah. Well, the night of the party, my friend Kenny, who was on the steering committee as well, we were outvoted as far as having Rollerina come to the party, paying for his transportation and appearance. We were outvoted. So in protest, the night of the party, my friend Kenny, who was on the steering committee with me, Bruce and Bob, dressed up in full drag, roller derby drag, as the Back Bay Bombers on roller skates in big teased up, hideous platinum wigs and everything, and made an entrance into the party to upstage Rollerina.
And it worked.
Oh,
yeah.
it was hysterical.
Was Rollerina mad? A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they were really flamboyant.
Yeah.
You know, they had Back Bay Bombers on their uniforms,
Yeah.
and like roller skirts, you
Yeah.
know, those short skirts that the roller skaters
Right.
were going to wear.
Yeah.
And none of these three guys could skate.
Yeah.
So they were like
all over the place. Yeah.
It was funny.
So Rollerina, now I want to find pictures of Rollerina.
Oh, easy.
That's
Google Rollerina.
Next thing I need to do is find out who Rollerina was.
He's still alive.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, in fact, I have a picture of him with a friend of mine on Facebook from last year. It's at one of the CTs in New York.
Oh, yeah. So Rollerina, so you worked for Los Papagayos for that 1 in 75, and then did you do
And
other
1976 was
Yes,
Emerald City.
Emerald City.
That was held at Horticultural Hall. That was, I broke, because I had gone out that day to Skippy White's, again, going through every single record that they had gotten in. And I come across this album by this woman called Yvonne Fair.
Mm-hmm.
The Bitch is Black. The Bitch is Black. And
Yeah.
she's in black leather with a whip.
Uh-huh.
And I listened to the record and I heard this one song, very sleazy, called It Should Have Been Me. And I threw that down as my encore song for the end of Emerald City.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, the dance floor stopped and they just turned around and looked at me.
Yeah.
And were just looking at me as the song started playing. And as soon as it started breaking into the song, they just screamed and erupted. You know the song, It Should Have Been Me?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a very emotional song.
Yeah. But no one had heard it before.
Yeah.
You know, and I took it. I'm like, whenever I played an encore, it was always something I wanted to hear
Sure.
versus playing for the crowd.
Right.
And that's one thing I like about mixing now. I don't have to worry about a dance floor.
I know.
Be concerned.
It's fun being a bedroom DJ, right? I mean, it is.
It is.
It is fun.
There's less pressure.
There is, but there's a certain element missing. I mean,
True.
Obviously, the audience, right?
Right.
But I
Because
mean,
you feed off that energy.
You do, but those moments of real magic are kind of few and far between nowadays, to me. Anyway.
Right.
And, you know, although I, you know, you can't complain. I mean, if you're playing for, I'll go back to Frankie Knuckles for a second. There's a quote in an interview he gave at Red Bull for an interview at Red Bull Music Academy where he says something to the effect of that it doesn't matter how big or small the crowd is that you're playing for. If there are people who believe in you, those are the only people that matter.
Right.
Whether it's 15 people or whether it's 1,000 people,
right.
It's the people who believe in you and who understand or want to understand what you're trying
and appreciate
to do.
what
And
you're
appreciate
doing.
what
Right.
you're doing.
Those are the people you play to.
Yeah. So whether that's in a live environment or whether that's for a podcast, you know, maybe there isn't much of a difference. You know.
And you know, when I do my podcast today, I keep in mind my friends who are going to be listening to it.
Yeah.
And I because I'll know, cause some of my friends I know that I know what they're going to feel when they hear this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've actually had friends call me up and go, "Oh my God, no, you didn't." And I'll go, "Oh yes, I did."
His current podcasts are very good. He just started releasing more of his own mixtapes via his podcast, and some of them are comprised of a lot of older records, but also a lot of them now are comprised of reworkings of older songs, which are a big thing right now. A lot of DJs are editing, re-editing, reworking classics into newer structures and in more DJ-friendly versions.
What's old is new again.
A lot of what's old is new again. We were talking about this
Yeah.
last night, too, that a good thing about playing some of the music now is that a lot of the older stuff is just coming back around in a different form. And so younger people might know it from their parents or their older siblings or something like that. They're getting to hear a lot of this music in a new context. So in some ways, it's kind of exciting what's happening right now with dance music, too, because a lot of it's being redone this way.
It's also exciting for the DJ because it gives us the ability to play a song for people who know this music, but without them knowing it until a certain point.
Right.
And that's like why I don't use playlists.
Yeah.
Because
right.
I'll, you know, a lot of the stuff that I play, I'll mix into it, and of course the people listening to it are like, "Oh, okay, that was a nice mix."
Yeah.
But they don't identify, they can't identify what the song is yet.
Right, because the sample won't come in later.
And until like maybe 30 seconds or 45 seconds later, and then I go, "Oh."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what...
That element of surprise is actually becoming
that's what I love.
A thing again,
Yeah.
sure.
And that's when I have friends of mine call me up and say, I can't believe you played that song. I'm like, why not?
Yeah. Somebody else